Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the UW System Board of Regents. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Regent President Walsh.
Here.
Regent Vice President Bogus.
Here.
Regent Adams.
Present.
Regent Atwell.
Here.
Regent Bechtel.
Here.
Regent Cologne. Regent Jones.
Here.
Regent Menedides.
Here.
Regent Miller.
Here.
Regent Posh.
Here.
Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Prince.
Present.
Regent Rye.
Here.
Regent Staton.
Here.
Regent Tucker.
Here.
Regent Underley.
Here.
Regent Walks.
Here.
And Regent Weatherly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. As we consider items on today's agenda, are there board members who wish to declare conflicts of interest regarding today's open session agenda? Seeing and hearing none, let's proceed. Welcome to this March meeting of the board. I'd like to thank Chancellor Frank and her fabulous staff for hosting this meeting with their usual warm hospitality. To start us off, I believe President Rothman has an introduction.
I do, and good afternoon, everyone. We actually introduced this individual at our last meeting, but I'd like to put it on record that this is officially Corey King's first meeting as the 18th Chancellor of UW-Whitewater. He started in his new role on March 1st, and once again, welcome Chancellor King. I would also like to recognize that this is the final board meeting for UW-Madison Provost John Carl Schultz, who was recently named the next president of the University of Oregon. I want to thank Carl for his contributions to higher education in Wisconsin and congratulate him on his new appointment. And while I have only known Carl for a short period of time since I've been in my role, I have found him to be an individual of great integrity with a passion for education and a commitment to our students. His contributions will leave a lasting impact that will be felt not only at UW-Madison, but throughout the system for years to come. And Chancellor Mnookin, I believe you wanted to say a few words.
Is this on? Yes?
It is.
Great. I just wanted to have the chance to thank Carl as well on behalf of both myself and just everybody at UW-Madison. He is really the whole deal. He's an exceptional scholar. He's made great contributions as an economist. He was a terrific leader of our College of Letters and Science, our largest school. And as provost, he led us through difficult times, including the pandemic, with grace and empathy and an ability to make hard decisions, but to also recognize the ways that hard decisions affected real people on the ground. I think that one of the extraordinary qualities he brings to his role is that strategic ability to think like an economist, but to think like an economist with a very big heart. And there aren't really that many people, I think, who have that pair of characteristics. And so I know that's going to stand him in very good stead in his next role as he goes and becomes a duck. I also think that although I know personally that he has a growing collection of green ties to get ready for this big move, I also know that a part of him will remain and will always be a Badger. And I just want to say as well that he's been an incredible help to me this year as I've learned about and am navigating the incredible university that is UW-Madison. And so I hope we can all give Carl just a really big round of applause. Yes, so big that it embarrasses him. And I'm excited that I'll get to continue to work with him at the AAU and in other settings in his new role. To Carl.
And I'm just going to jump in here, and I've known Carl since he was the Dean of LNS, which was where my degree is from. He's been very patient and kind explaining things to me, especially econ, which I never took in college. He was always a very patient teacher and really someone that I knew I could go to anytime for advice or assistance. And on that note, Carl, I'd really like to send you off with a Badger goodbye, but we're going to do an Oregon goodbye for you. And we're not giving you these duck calls.
Carol, I'm not sure what else to say. I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words.
Oh, good gosh. It's been such an honor to be part of the UW system for nearly 35 years. And so to my provost friends, to the chancellors who are so kind to me, to the regents, to everybody, the students, staff, and faculty, thank you. The place is burned in, as the chancellor said. I'll always be Badger Red. I also want to thank Chancellor Mnookin and Chancellor Blank for everything, all these opportunities they've provided me over the years. I'm going to break down and cry, so this is not my style. I'm not worthy, but thank you so much.
And hopefully we won't have any more duck calls during the meeting today. So with that, President Walsh, it's back to you.
Okay, I would also like to note that this is the final meeting for two of our esteemed Regent colleagues, Regent Scott Bechtel and Regent Brianna Tucker, whose terms on the board end May 1st. We will recognize Regent Tucker during tomorrow's meeting, but we'll save our formal farewell to Regent Bechtel, including the kazoo band, which I'm going to be recruiting for. We will save that for when the board next meets, and that's in Milwaukee in June. And thank you both. You're wonderful colleagues, and you really made a difference on this board. So thank you. All right, the records of the February 9th and 10th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Regents have been provided. May I have a motion to approve these records?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And they are approved. A report from the Wisconsin Technical College System Board has been provided. Are there any comments or questions on this report? Okay, I see none. Now we have a few updates on our chancellor search processes. As we all know, Chancellor Debbie Ford will be leaving UW-Parkside later this year to begin her new role as Chancellor of Indiana University Southeast. We'll formally recognize her at the board's next meeting in June, but I do want to thank Debbie for her many years of service to her students and to the UW system. 2 weeks ago, President Rothman and I charged the UW-Parkside Chancellor Search and Screen Committee with its mission to help find her successor. The Search and Screen Committee, which is being led by Regent Kyle Weatherly as chair and Professor Adrian Viramontes as vice chair, received an overview of the campus profile and provided their input on the position prospectus. The final prospectus was approved earlier this week by the Special Regent Committee, which includes Regents Hector Colon, John Miller, Ashok Rai, and Jennifer Staton, in addition to Regent Weatherly. The national search will officially open on April 3rd, and the deadline to submit nominations and applications for full consideration is May 31st. Listening sessions will be held this spring to provide members of the campus community with an opportunity to share what qualities they would like to see in candidates for Parkside's new chancellor. The search committee is expected to meet periodically throughout the summer to screen applications and interview semifinalists, with the goal of inviting finalist candidates to visit the UW-Parkside campus this September. Our hope is to have UW-Parkside's next chancellor named shortly after that. And just as one search is beginning, the search for UW-Platteville's next chancellor is entering its final stages. Both this week and next week, the UW-Platteville campus is hosting each of the 3 finalist candidates who were selected by the Special Regent Committee following the recommendation by the Search and Screen Committee, which was led by Regent Chris Peterson as chair and Professor Christina Kuras as vice chair. During these campus visits, UW-Platteville students, faculty, staff, and community members will have the opportunity to interact with the candidates in public forums and provide feedback to the Special Regent Committee, whose members include Regents Scott Bechtel, Mike Jones, Ed Menydeeds, and Rodney Posh, in addition to Regent Peterson as chair. After reviewing campus feedback, the Special Regent Committee will interview the finalists in April and recommend its top candidate to the board for its approval. The person selected through this process will be UW-Platteville's 15th chancellor. In other news, I'm excited to announce a new initiative to recognize the innovative collaborations that are happening between our universities and the businesses in their communities. These partnerships have reciprocal and beneficial impacts on our curricular, program, and service efforts, and they also reflect the changing needs of our universities, workforce, and communities. Over the next year, our intent is to publicly recognize and highlight some of the active collaborations between each of our universities and one of their valued business partners. And yesterday, I was pleased to present the first ever Regents Business Partnership Award to 3M Menominee. And as I said yesterday, it was very special that the first of these awards was going to be given out by our Polytechnic. So it was great time to congratulate 3M and Stout. As Chancellor Frank noted at that presentation, 3M Menominee has been a consistent presence in their career conference for more than 20 years, hiring Stout interns company-wide every year. 3M Menominee has also provided support to many Stout programs, including STEM programming, lab equipment, and building campaigns. So, delighted to celebrate the partnership between UW-Stout and 3M Menominee and hope it will continue for many years to come. And we look forward to highlighting many more examples of how our system universities are building strong relationships with businesses in support of our students and communities. Finally, by the time we meet at UWM in June, each of our universities will have celebrated one of our best events, and that's commencement. In coming weeks, about 23,000 students will be presented with their University of Wisconsin diplomas. It's a very special time. On behalf of the board, I would like to offer our congratulations. The University of Wisconsin degree is so much more than a piece of paper. It's a recognition of tremendous dedication and hard work, and our graduates and their families should be so very proud. I know we are. Congratulations, class of 2023. That concludes my report. President Rothman.
Great, thank you very much. Allow me to add my early congratulations to our new graduates as well. There's so much opportunity out there for them, and I know they are going to do great things, but they will also help our state win the war for talent, which is absolutely critical to our state's long-term viability. I want to share a couple of updates. First, starting with our strategic plan. Our strategic plan is our North Star. It guides our actions as we move into the future, and I'm very thankful to this board for its approval of that plan last December. One overarching strategic goal is to increase the number of graduates from our UW system universities by 10% to 41,000 students annually by 2028. The driving goal behind this is to assist Wisconsin in winning that war for talent that I just talked about. We know there are not enough nurses and engineers and educators and data scientists, and that list goes on, to fill the needs of our state employers. And unless we fill those jobs here in Wisconsin, those jobs that can be moved will, by necessity, be moved out of the state, and they will not come back. And those that can't be moved, whether it's in healthcare or in education, will go unfilled, which will lead to issues of accessibility and, quite frankly, I think a diminution in quality, which the citizens of this state don't deserve. Our strategic plan at the same time is focused on enhancing social mobility by increasing university access to historically underserved students, including those of lower socioeconomic means. That impacts every county in this state. All 72 counties are impacted by this. Achieving our goals, of course, starts with enrollment. Today, I want to highlight several initiatives underway through our Office of Academic and Student Affairs under the leadership of Dr. Johannes Britz. The team has assembled a task force to consider UW System's dual enrollment practices in the context of expanding access to higher education, increasing participation rates among Wisconsin students, and increasing the number of dual enrollment students who attend a UW university. And I just want to note as an aside, The participation rate, which means the number of high school graduates that go on either to a tech school education or to a university education, that participation rate, we have the lowest participation rate of any state around us. That has to change if we're going to win the war for talent. And we need to do a better job on that, and that's what this group is in part focused on. This task force work will extend into the summer with a report and recommendation due by September 1st. We're also looking at direct admissions, following positive feedback from the regents and chancellors in February, and with a significant number of our UW institutions expressing an interest in participating in a direct admissions program as part of their overall strategy to enhance enrollment. Again, the Office of Academic and Student Affairs is assembling a direct admissions implementation team that will include university, K through 12, and DPI representation, because it takes that village in order to do this well. In the near term, that team will support the 2 universities that have already embarked on pilot programs in direct admissions, namely UW Green Bay and UW Milwaukee, and also work with universities to make direct admissions part of the articulation agreements that they have with the Wisconsin Technical College System schools. Thereafter, and over the course of the next year, the team will develop a model for a system-wide direct admissions program for new freshmen and ensure that the program meets strategic plan goals for access. The direct admissions team will begin meeting this spring and has set a timetable for specific deliverables through the remainder of this year and into 2024. We are also exploring ways to expand the number of international students we educate. The Office of Academic and Student Affairs is currently evaluating how the UW system can support the recruitment of international students, and then secondly, determine how those students might contribute to the Wisconsin workforce post-graduation. To this end, the office has convened university international directors and other stakeholders to provide input on their activities, and I was pleased that Regents Walsh, Bogost, and Weatherly also participated in that. We plan to utilize this input to build a strategic framework for supporting system-wide internationalization activities. In addition to those steps, we are also looking to expand enrollment through online strategies. Following feedback from campus leadership and shared governance, I accepted the accelerating online education recommendations for strategic online growth. The initial efforts that they are focused on are to develop an online portal that will promote online programs from across the state. So you can go to one portal and identify all of the online programs that are available in the state. This group will also benchmark the structures and operations of online enterprises from across the nation to ensure that we are employing best practices, and will also create an online advisory council that includes leadership and experts from across the UW system to provide further guidance on our online strategic direction as we move forward. This initiative will address workforce development and adult upskilling and reskilling through online programming. The implementation team's efforts will be ongoing for the next 12 to 18 months. Finally, we are realigning resources within the Office of Academic and Student Affairs to provide enrollment strategy support to our universities, consistent with the enrollment and graduation goals set out in the strategic plan. Now let me share a couple of updates on legislative issues. The state budget dominates the conversation in the state capitol right now, and we are grateful to Governor Evers for his continuing support of higher education in the UW system. Earlier this month, I was asked to speak relative to our budget request before the Assembly Committee on Colleges and Universities, where we had what I considered a very good and robust discussion about UW system's integral role in Wisconsin's workforce and addressing that workforce in light of demographic challenges that our state has. I also continue to meet with and have productive conversations on a one-on-one basis with legislators regarding our budget request. In April, the Joint Finance Committee will hold 4 listening sessions around the state. These hearings will be held in Waukesha, Wisconsin Dells, Minocqua, and Eau Claire. And in Eau Claire, it will be hosted by our UW-Eau Claire, at our UW-Eau Claire campus. Our government relations team is working with chancellors and their staffs to have the UW system well represented at each of those 4 hearings. And last week, the State Building Commission met to vote on the capital budget proposal. Along with Alex Rowe, I testified in front of the Higher Education Subcommittee, reiterating the priority list for capital spend that this board approved earlier. I will continue to advocate on that priority list as the capital budget is submitted now to the Joint Finance Committee for consideration. Outside of the budget process, we recently had one of our 2 top legislative priorities introduced, and another bill that supports student scholarships now headed to the governor's desk for signature. First, the Wisconsin-Minnesota Reciprocity Bill was introduced by Senator Staff-Holt and Representative Zimmerman and enjoys bipartisan support. This bill ensures that remaining funds paid by Minnesota reciprocity students who are being educated in the UW system schools, that those excess funds are returned to the UW institutions they attend instead of going directly to the state's general fund. This change would have a significant positive financial impact for many of our universities. Additionally, legislation to extend the successful Merit Scholarship Program is now headed to Governor Evers' desk for his signature. This scholarship program was created in 2017 and has provided over $1.5 million in financial aid to nearly 300 students over the last 5 years. This program, which was set to sunset on April 1st of this year, will now, with this new legislation, allow that program to continue so that we can continue to support some of Wisconsin's best and brightest students that are attending our universities and retain that talent in the state of Wisconsin. Now I want to recognize some significant recent accomplishments in the UW system family. Last month, the 2022-23 Fulbright Scholar and Fulbright Student Program winners were announced, and I'm pleased to report that we were very well represented. Sponsored by the State Department, Fulbright Scholars support academic exchanges through the United States in over 150 countries around the world. In the Fulbright Scholar Program category, which offers teaching and research grants for faculty and administrators, 6 UW universities were represented, including Madison with 8 Fulbright Scholars, Milwaukee and Stevens Point each with 2, and La Crosse and Superior each with 1. Now the Fulbright Student Program offers grants to study or research programs. 5 UW universities were represented in this category, including Madison with 9 Fulbrights, Eau Claire with 3, Stevens Point with 2, and La Crosse and Oshkosh each with 1. This really is a tremendous honor. When you think about Fulbright Scholars, tremendous honor for all involved, and the UW system is very proud, and I extend my congratulations to all of the recipients and the honorees. On to another topic. It was recently announced that a group of donors has committed $2.1 million to an initiative at Milwaukee dedicated to ensuring that students of color graduate at the same rate as white students to help eliminate long-term and long-standing equity gaps. Through their participation with the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, the donors established the Moonshot for Equity Fund at the foundation to marshal support for the sweeping initiative that is central to UWM's work as a student-focused access university. As Chancellor Mone has noted, the investment is a critical boost for students, allowing the university to make retention, reentry, and emergency grants to students whose education is at risk or has been interrupted for various reasons. I'd like to extend my congratulations to Chancellor Mone and the entire UWM campus community. And last week, UW-Madison School of Education Dean Diana Hess announced a $5 million gift from Susan and James Patterson to extend its Teacher Pledge program through the 26-27 academic year. This donor-funded initiative, which started back in 2020, pays the equivalent of in-state tuition and fees, testing, and license costs for students enrolled in one of the education school's teacher education programs. In return, graduates pledge to teach for 3 or 4 years at a pre-kindergarten through 12th grade level in a Wisconsin school. This is a wonderful gift and will help address Wisconsin's pressing workforce challenges in the field of education. Again, we do not have enough educators in the state. My congratulations to Dean Hess, Chancellor Mnookin, and the UW-Madison community. Now, if you'll allow me to turn to sports for just a second, I'd like to offer a big shout out to the UW-Madison women's hockey team, which upset Ohio State in the NCAA national title game to win an unprecedented 7th championship at the women's Final Four, Frozen Four. To make this even more impressive, the Badgers have won 3 straight national titles over the past 4 years, with the championship round in 2020 canceled due to COVID. Congratulations to these Badger student athletes, which have represented the university so well. We'll have a little bit of additional information on some other great national champions within the system in just a few minutes. And then finally, for my comments today, UW-Stout's Manufacturing Outreach Center was recently recognized with a Regional Impact Award from Momentum West, which promotes economic development in the region. The Manufacturing Outreach Center serves 33 counties in the area, delivering solutions to small and medium-sized manufacturers through consulting, training, and workforce development. As Momentum West Executive Director Steve Yan noted in presenting the award, and I quote, "The resources offered to manufacturers by the Manufacturing Outreach Center are invaluable in terms of elevating their operational efficiency and expanding their markets," end quote. Again, congratulations to the center, Chancellor Frank, and the UW-Stout campus community. And that concludes my report, President Walsh.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to turn things over to our host chancellor, Catherine Frank.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stout. We're very, very happy that you're all here and that we've had a little bit of time to feature what we do at this institution. So, thank you all. Thank you, Regent President Walsh, Regents, and President Rothman for the opportunity to present today on behalf of UW-Stout. And like I said, we are delighted that you all are here. As you might recall, the last time we addressed the board as hosts was remotely in April of 2021 during the height of the pandemic. Much has occurred at Stout since then, and it is important that you are able to experience firsthand what a Polytechnic University is, what a Polytechnic University does, and consequently, what a Polytechnic University requires in order to best meet the workforce needs of the state. As Wisconsin's only Polytechnic University, we are uniquely positioned to meet these needs. And to do so is foregrounded in our mission statement, one that is undeniably distinct from other UW system schools. It reads, "The University of Wisconsin-Stout prepares students for careers through applied learning and research, professional experiences, and collaborative partnerships to benefit a global society." So when we benchmark ourselves with other universities, rather than focus on the UW comprehensive universities, we consider the national polytechnic landscape, where there are only 3% of the universities in the US that are classified as polytechnics. This is because the philosophy of and approach to learning at a polytechnic university are different than at traditional comprehensive universities. When we speak to prospective students, we emphasize our 3 educational tenets: career focus, applied learning, and collaboration with business and industry. While comprehensive universities are beginning to embrace hands-on learning, UW-Stout emphasizes applied, project-based learning with career-focused outcomes that have been part of our educational philosophy for more than 130 years. We reinforce that students' learning environments will be the labs and studios that outnumber traditional classrooms on our campus by 3 to 1. When we engage with and compare ourselves to our polytechnic peers, we are comparing pedagogy, program array, resources, infrastructure, and professional relationships. So some of you have seen this infographic used in other presentations today, and there's a lot I could say about this slide. However, what I want to call out is the way that it ties measurable outcomes back to our institutional mission in terms of industry partnerships, and employment within 6 months of graduation from Stout. This infographic also tells the story of how we achieve these outcomes through acquired experiential learning, such as internships, co-ops, practica, applied research projects, through program advisory committees comprised of industry and business experts who inform curriculum, academic program development, equipment and infrastructure choices, and through specialized credentialing that results in more than 50% of our current students becoming what we call triple threat graduates, meaning they hold a 4-year degree, have engaged in experiential learning, such as internships and co-ops, and hold a professional credential. What I will focus on next, and what the upcoming panel will emphasize, is the value of a Polytechnic university and the importance of investment of appropriate resources and infrastructure to support it. Many of you saw the next 2 slides and heard this information earlier today, and I'm presenting the material again in order to emphasize what Stout does best as a Polytechnic university. The takeaway from this should not be, wow, look at all that Stout has been able to do without appropriate investment. Rather, the takeaway should be the unanimous recognition of how much more could be accomplished with proportionate resources. Adhering to our mission and fulfilling the promise we have made to our students and to the state is our job. It must be the outcome of this institution's work on behalf of the state of Wisconsin. The fact of the matter is that we could be producing even more graduates to fill the high-need workforce areas across the state with the appropriate investment in our institution. Again, only 3% of U.S. universities are classified as polytechnics. This slide compares us to 3 polytechnics and 1 university with a similar mission. Cal Poly Humboldt, established as a polytechnic in January of 2022. Ferris State, although not an officially designated Polytechnic university, their mission is aligned with a Polytechnic mission, and the university is designated as one of UW-Stout's peers for comparative purposes. Utah Tech University, the youngest of the Polytechnics, having gone through a name and mission change in July of 2022, and Michigan Technological University. So, to summarize this slide, it's pretty simple. Michigan Tech receives 73% more state support than Stout. Utah Tech receives 88% more state support than Stout. Ferris State receives 106% more state support than Stout. And Cal Poly Humboldt receives 204% more state support than Stout. And for reference, in 2021 to 2022, UW-Stout had a larger FTE student base than Michigan Tech and Cal Poly Humboldt, respectively. Furthermore, safe, reliable, responsive, and modern infrastructure is critical to fulfilling our mission as the state's polytechnic and delivering on our promise to students and employers. As this slide shows, during the last decade, UW-Stout has received the least amount of investment in infrastructure compared to our peers. UW-Stout's last major academic building renovation was Harvey Hall, completed in 2015. Our peers and the states in which they reside are investing in their infrastructure to attract new students and provide state-of-the-art laboratories, flexible studios, and vibrant learning spaces to educate students and prepare them for careers. UW-Stout will continue to fall behind our polytechnic peers unless sufficient capital investments are made to improve our students' learning environments and meet industry expectations. As our data shows, an investment in Stout is a sound investment in meeting workforce needs, not only in the region, but also across the state. And again, The reasons for this tie back to our mission and the work that supports it. Workforce readiness and leadership is what we do. It's in our DNA as an institution from our earliest beginnings and can be seen in one of our earliest first destination reports detailing student success. What you see on this slide coming up is a first destination report from 86 years ago, so thank you, Stout Archives. It's placed side by side with the cover of our most recent report, which you all have in your folders. We have been collecting this data for a long time, and while much has changed, if you look at this slide carefully, the success of our graduates has not. Critical to understand about UW-Stout is that we have maintained a 97+% employment rate within 6 months of graduation from Stout for well over a decade. And we are proud to report that we are swiftly approaching 100% placement. Our latest data show that we are now at a 99.4% employment rate within 6 months of graduation from Stout. We are extremely proud that this success is embodied by some of Stout's most important constituencies. You saw in an earlier slide that our first generation students comprise 35% of Stout's student population, and 99% of these first generation graduates are now employed or going further in their education. Furthermore, 100% of our recent veteran graduates are employed or seeking advanced degrees. We have long outpaced the UW system employment rate and the Wisconsin Technical College system employment rate. As we learned at the last Board of Regents meeting, 86.9% of UW system graduates have held full-time employment since earning their degree. The employment rate for the Wisconsin Technical College system is reported at 93%. A question was posed during the last meeting by Regent President Walsh regarding the number of engineering graduates who pursue employment in the region served by their university. At UW-Stout, approximately 60% of our graduates remain in Wisconsin following graduation, and the percentage of engineering students who accept employment in the immediate region following graduation is approximately 30%. My point in revisiting this question is that at Stout, we collect detailed data regarding our graduates with respect to employment post-graduation. We can respond to this question with respect to engineering graduates, as well as with respect to all graduates at Stout, regardless of their major. It is part of Stout's ongoing commitment to planning, assessment, research, and quality, as still the only four-year university recipient of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. Obviously, this work tracking student employment post-graduation is not new to us at Stout, as I've already said. We have been doing this for more than 130 years. One of our primary goals is to continue to lead and remain cutting edge in our approach to career preparation and workforce responsiveness. To do this effectively, to recruit and retain students, faculty, and staff, and fund our academic enterprise, we must have the infrastructure and resources to support learning at Wisconsin's Polytechnic University. So if we consider this work through the lens of Heritage Hall, we can see what this transformed building will allow us to do as an institution and resource for this state. And as you all know and have been reminded many, many times today, the major innovation of Heritage Hall is our top capital project on this campus that will transform a dying 50-year-old home economics building into a state-of-the-art learning facility that addresses the high-need workforce areas of childcare, mental health and wellness, and tourism, and through cross-sector connections, help to support the workforce challenges of other sectors like manufacturing. Thank you all for your recognition of this critical major innovation and your continued advocacy for enumeration of this project in the 2023-25 biennial budget. So as I remind students and stakeholders regularly when discussing our three educational tenets, we depend on our industry and business partners to inform our curriculum, decisions regarding infrastructure and equipment, and the structure of our internships and cooperative learning experiences. Therefore, we thought that one of the best ways to demonstrate how we operate at UW-Stout would be to convene a panel of business and industry experts whose sectors are served by the graduates from many of the programs at Heritage Hall. So again, mental health and wellness, childcare, tourism, and manufacturing. We have several questions that will help to demonstrate how the UW-Stout Polytechnic Advantage and our focus on applied learning, career, and collaboration produces well-prepared graduates who help address the critical workforce needs of today and tomorrow. So now I get to turn things over to this wonderful panel that is at the end of the table. And we are going to be, and first of all, thank you. These are very, very busy people, and they made the time today to be here to help with this discussion and really demonstrate what we do at Stout. This is how we solve problems. This is how we build our curriculum. This is how we decide what infrastructure is going to look like, what we're going to put in our labs and our studios. We couldn't do the work at Stout, and we couldn't have the outcomes I've just described without our many business and industry partners, as well as our public servants. And I have one of those here today as well. So starting with that individual, Representative Clint Moses, please introduce yourself, your position, and your UW-Stout affiliation or connection.
Yeah, thank you, Chancellor Frank. I'd always like to welcome people to my hometown in Menominee and my original school where I started my educational journey after high school. So the Chancellor's going to have to tell me more about this Heritage Hall project. That is a joke. She has been an absolute fierce advocate for that project. So I just like to make the Chancellor nervous once in a while. As you can imagine, we've gotten to know each other quite a bit over this process the last 2 sessions. During the budget season, it's always very interesting to be a legislator invited to a Board of Regents meeting, I will say that. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Rep. Clint Moses. I started here at Stout, graduated in '99. Both my parents were also alumni of this institution as well. When I first met Chancellor Frank, I always introduced myself as, yeah, I graduated from Stout with their least employable degree, which was not real helpful. So she got me thinking about this. You know, I have a degree in psychology, and it was my first bachelor's, and I use that degree every single day. Stout was a polytechnic institution before it was a polytechnic institution. My dad was a shop teacher, industrial arts, which was also a big one here at Stout. They can't turn enough of those out these days. Being a former school board member, I know what it's like to try and find those teachers for those positions right now. My mom was a marriage and family counselor, social worker, also graduated from UW-Stout and Jim Schmidt's institution as well. But Stout was Polytechnic before it was cool. So I'm here to tell you this Heritage Hall project is a big deal for us in this area. I also, and it's dangerous, she didn't set time limits that I know of, and I'm used to those, but I also am a father of 4 daughters, so I come at it not just as a public servant, which I like that a lot better than being called a politician, but I come at it from a dad perspective. I have 4 daughters, one of which is starting her first year at UW River Falls, having a great experience over there. But as a parent looking at these campuses, when I go into Heritage Hall, or when I go into some of the facilities here on campus that need to be updated, I might look somewhere else. So it is a big deal as a parent. Affordability also is a big deal. So doing stuff like the bill that was mentioned by the president with the scholarship, the merit scholarship, those are huge as well. I also come at it from a small business perspective. So I'll touch on more of that stuff. She might let me talk again if I don't say too much more, so I'll defer, but nice to be here.
Hello. Do I have to push this, or?
Yeah, there's
Probably.
Oh, you're dead.
Can you guys hear me? Okay,
Yes.
we're good. I'm Amy Sheehan. I am a graduate. Thanks for putting the date up there, 93. So I'm a graduate of UW-Stout. I lead talent acquisition for a globally branded food company called Hormel Foods. We have such beloved brands as Spam, Black Label Bacon. We just recently acquired Planters Peanuts, if you're familiar with that brand, Skippy Peanut Butter. People don't really realize all the brands that we do have in our portfolio, but it's an exciting company to work for. Like I said, I'm a graduate of UW-Stout. My husband is also a graduate of UW-Stout, played hockey for UW-Stout while we were here, led by Terry Watkins, who I believe recently retired. My daughter is also a graduate of, or not a graduate, she's in school, sophomore UW-Eau Claire. She's on the swim team. You failed to mention that they won the conference. The women's swim team won first time since 1999, so that was a big deal for the school. And my son is a graduate of UW-Madison, so we're very connected with the UW system. I'm excited to be here. I remember quantity food production and Corner 3 and all that stuff, restaurant op, and I'm really excited to talk about the value that it will bring. The new Heritage Hall, it was new in '93, I think. So I'm really glad to be here. Thanks so much.
Well, good afternoon, and it's good to see some old friends. I'm Mark Tyler with OEM Fabricators. I'm the odd person out. I'm not a graduate of Stout. My apologies. But our connections could not be deeper with Stout. About half of our leadership, management, and engineering team members at OEM are Stout graduates. Our headquarters is about 20 miles away from here. Our team members serve as in advisory capacities. We've got long-term relationships with the Discovery Center and the Manufacturing Outreach Center. And in addition, UW-Stout is not only an important pipeline for talent, but also an important relationship that helps both of us maintain our competitive edge.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is this, okay, it is on and I can hear myself now. I did graduate from Stout with a Bachelor of Science in Hospitality and Tourism Management several years ago, and whoever's controlling the slides, similar to me, thank you for taking down the years. So we'll just suffice it to say several years ago. I stayed true to my major for my entire professional career. I held various leadership roles, and I started out as a corporate management trainee with a major hotel chain that actively recruited on campus, and Stout was viewed as being a top producer of young leaders, professionals to feed the hospitality industry. Grew my way through was Hyatt Hotels to holding various executive leadership positions. But then every once in a while I bounced out of hospitality and helping bring experiences to life to focus on the technology side, and never realized when I was here just the importance of those tangential industries that touch hospitality and tourism. I led a few different companies in helping bring technology into hospitality and tourism to enable, experiences. And there's some nice crossover with other things that are going on here at Stout. Today, I am the CEO of a software as a services company, data as a services company called Noland. And we are focused on working with tourism and hospitality companies in understanding the business, understanding their competitive set advantage, all with one goal in mind, and that's to build business. And to fill empty rooms like this is what my company does, and works very closely with many of the major hotel brands, tourism sites globally. In addition to my day job, if you would, I do hold a few different roles within the industry. American Hotel and Lodging Association, probably most notably, I am the co-chair of the Vendor Advisory Council for AHNLA, as well as hold a board seat on the executive leadership group for AHNLA. So have a very good purview on the industry itself and the various tangential industries and verticals, and there are over 200 of them that influence hospitality and feed into and support things that are going on specifically here at Stout. I am who I am largely because of this university. The 3.5 years I spent here really helped form who I am. Similar to Clint's comments, I was here before Polytechnic was cool, and we were officially named a Polytechnic organization, but it's core to our DNA. And it's really our approach to learning here, and the experiences that were enabled helped set me up for, I think, a fairly successful professional career. Happy to be here. I appreciate the invitation and look forward to sharing more stories.
Thanks. I'm Tony Simonson, Executive Director of Behavioral Health for Hospital Sisters Health System and Prevea Health on the western side of Wisconsin. I'm a Stout graduate, long time ago, as many at the table. My entire family, my husband was a Eau Claire graduate, my son a Madison graduate, and my daughter a Stout graduate. So all from one of the UW systems. In behavioral health, there are so many needs, which we'll talk about, but Stout stands apart from the other schools that we encounter students from. And I'll talk to you in detail about that a little bit later. But it's really exciting to be back here on campus. I don't think I've been back here since I graduated, so it was very interesting figuring out parking and all of that. But really excited to be here and helping to provide information about the need in behavioral health, which is significant, and hope that you will ask questions and I can help you as the meeting goes on.
Thank you. Thank you all. So each of you represents a unique sector of Wisconsin's workforce. From your perspective, what are the key challenges to growth, greater efficiency, and improved productivity with regard to your sector? So let's start with Amy.
Sure. So for us, I mean, everybody went through COVID like all of us. It was a very unique time where we learned a lot about our labor force. Well, we were all home comfy in our jammies. Our manufacturers were going to work every day to produce food to feed the world, which was a big deal. And it was a scary time. But in addition to that, we're seeing the shift in the marketplaces, and many of us, you're talking about the challenges about the state of Wisconsin and how difficult it is. The needs for jobs, we have more jobs than people. We're in a math problem right now. So if you look at the labor data, there's 2 jobs for every available person. So I think COVID really exacerbated that problem by looking at, when you look at the available workers, you had 3 million women leave the workforce due to, childcare issues, teaching kids at home, remote learning, all sorts of things that happened during that time. So we're at this point where we're trying to identify how do we differentiate ourselves as an employer, become competitive, create opportunities for the workforce that will certainly, and make sure we have enough people to fill those jobs. There's also a lot of barriers when it comes to having people in the workforce, one of them being childcare. So when I think about Stout and the areas that they offer, early childhood, we had childcare on our radar for a while, a childcare center, and I'm pleased to announce that I can actually share it. We put a press release out. We're gonna be opening a childcare center here in the next year. So we're breaking ground in April. So this is a barrier for our employees and team members, and we're really excited about that. But it's important because we need labor to staff the child care centers, so that's why it's so important when you think of the preparation that Stout does for early childhood, that connection, as well as if people don't have reliable child care, they're not able to come to work. So trying to remove those barriers.
Thank you. Jeff?
Well, I can pretty much take what Amy said and replace it with hospitality. And there was comments made earlier. We're in a war for talent, and it really has impacted hospitality and tourism. Amy had mentioned the impact of the pandemic. Suffice it to say, hospitality and tourism was decimated. We lost a lot of great talent, not due to anything they did, but then when we started rebuilding the industry, many of those who were in the industry for decades made the decision to either tap out completely and leave the workforce, or to decide to go into other lines of business that they perceived as being a little bit more stable and a safe place. So hospitality is in very much of a rebuild, from hourly talent to leadership, and that's where Stout actually plays into this. Just a few stats. Today, if we look at just the hotel sector within hospitality and tourism, over 80% of the hotels today in the US and here in Wisconsin face a labor shortage. And some refer to, and I believe this is true, it is a labor crisis, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. In addition to just getting us back to where we were as an industry, somewhat remarkably, we are still opening up and introducing literally thousands of new keys, new hotel rooms every year across the US and here in Wisconsin, which is going to put greater stress on the labor and the talent pool itself. According to latest stats from AHLA, Wisconsin right now today has a need for over 5,000 hotel workers to get back just to pre-pandemic levels. If you fast forward and look out another 2 to 4 years, besides just normal attrition, just accommodating growth, you have the 5,000 we're already in a gap, and there's a need for another 11 to 15,000 employees in hospitality, and tourism extends that much more greatly. On a broader scale, nationally, hotels need almost 1 million workers today. You probably have all experienced going into a hotel, or I even noticed it walking through Menominee with a posting closed on Mondays because of short staff. Or the apologetic, I'm sorry it's taking us a little bit more time to get food out of the kitchen. We're short staffed. And that is really impacting us. And we're in a process of rebuilding the industry, which means rebuilding the leadership itself. Factoring in growth, hospitality alone between now and the end of '24 needs over 1.2 million workers. And that's not just line staff, it's leadership positions as well. And Polytechnic plays greatly and strongly into hospitality and tourism, which is all based on personal experiences, and creating that applied learning and bringing in those experiences is critical to the rebirth and rebuild of hospitality and tourism.
Thank you, Jeff. And can you give us a broader perspective, Clint, sort of the state view on this?
Yeah, and Jeff and Amy touched on a lot of things that I would have brought up. I mean, we're in a situation where employers and different industries are competing for employees. One of the really neat things about my job and why I went into my first profession, which is I'm a chiropractor, I didn't say that before, but get to meet people. But as a legislator and being a representative, a public servant, you get to talk to a lot of people. I spent my day yesterday in Madison meeting with literally at least 30 different groups between individuals and organizations. A lot of employers, a lot of industry leaders, lobbyists, or like I said before, they like to be called advocates, not lobbyists. But, you know, and the number one common theme was workforce shortage issues. They are pleading for workers. We have a demographic in this state, an aging population, less people having kids. They're not doing their part like me, where I've got 4 kids out there. That's a joke, but on me, I guess. But you know, the other responsibility, the big responsibility I have in the state assembly, I'm the chair of the Health, Aging, and Long-Term Care. So a few weeks ago, I had a hearing where I had DHS in. I oversee the DHS agency and clearinghouse rules and all that kind of stuff. And I had a public hearing for them to come in and talk about long-term care facilities, so nursing homes, hospitals, hospital bed caps in our state, the IRIS program, where they maybe come into your home and take care of your loved one that needs health care because they can't get out. And the number one issue with all of them, workforce shortage. Yeah, we got people leaving the state. We got people graduating from our institutions or looking elsewhere for college. We need to keep them in-house. This is a real problem. Like I said, I spend my day, and that's the number one thing right now is workforce shortage. We need students to come out that are workforce ready to go, get in our workforce. There's a lot of jobs out there. It's definitely an employee's market. Like I said, I try to tie things into my personal life as well. I've been trying to hire another associate in our business for the last year and a half. So it is a challenge. And we're competing even for front desk staff, whether you're talking my office or Mayo Health System or Prevea. we're competing with companies like Quick Trip and some of these others that are out there because of the workforce issues that are out there. So we hear it all the time. Stout is well suited to get some of these people in the workforce. We need to get more of them in. And the other thing I was gonna say is, Stout in the past, and I know a number of our institutions do this really well, but I met a person that came down to visit with me yesterday that now works for another organization, but she was a Stout alumni. The reason she came to this institution was the STEM program, the camps that they do in the summertime. So one of my goals, at least with the healthcare side of it, is to get kids interested in healthcare earlier. Menominee High School I can speak to locally, obviously, have a lot of experience. They have a good program where the students can start doing their CNA. Or like when I was at Menominee High School ages ago, I'm glad they didn't put that up on the screen, but I got to take Stout classes when I was in high school. So I got kind of hooked on the university and the career track that I was looking at. In full disclosure, I had most of my first year done before I graduated from high school. So great programs like that brings them into our institutions and gets them hooked early.
Thank you, Clint. So you all have started to touch on this, but maybe talk a little bit in more specifics about the advantages of a Polytechnic to provide, to help address, right, and fulfill Wisconsin's current and future workforce needs. So Mark, do you want to start with that one?
Thank you. Well, back in 1971, the UW system was formed, and there was this long discussion of whether Stout State University should be part of the UW system or part of the vocational, technical, and adult education system, or today's WTCS. Well, we know what the result was, but for those of us in manufacturing, we like to think of UW-Stout as Wisconsin's four-year technical college. And we mean that in the most positive of ways. I mean, it ties back to Stout's roots of being a manual training school. Teaching Polytechnic, that's been part of Stout's history since, you know, the turn of the previous century, even though it probably wasn't called that in the early years. We think of knowledge as an equation. You've got what you learn minus what you forget equals knowledge. And what's important about that, when you think about a Polytechnic or learning in an applied environment, is that what you learn in an applied environment sticks. So the reason we love Stout graduates is because their knowledge is higher, because more of that applied learning stuck. That's really important. So as a manufacturer, oftentimes the barriers that we face lie outside of our control. We all know workforce is at top of mind. We've heard of it. Let me add a little bit of data to this. In 2010, across Wisconsin, there were about 34,000 potential people entering the workforce. And when I talk about this, we're taking 65-year-olds and pushing them out, and we're pulling 19-year-olds in. So 2010, 34,000. 2020, 8,000. 2030, 129. That's correct. Let me say that again. In 2030, the net gain in Wisconsin's workforce, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is 129 souls. That does not include workforce participation rate, which today runs a little over 2/3. So we are not at the crux of the crisis yet, even though it may feel like it. Sometimes I get in trouble when I say that we are not having enough productive sex. But it's true. We're not having enough kids. So I bring this up because early childhood workforce is critical, and so is access to child care. We need every child to be successful, not just for manufacturing, but for every sector of the workforce. You've heard this before. Amy said it, I'll say it again. The lack of access to child care is the leading cause of capable people, mostly women, choosing not to enter the workforce or to exit the workforce. In our region, UW-Stout plays a key role in developing that pipeline of talent and also provides childcare.
Thank you, Mark. Tony?
Sure. There is such a shortage of mental health providers in the state and nation right now. I mean, it was bad pre-COVID, and since COVID, it has just continued to increase. And, you know, having this workforce shortage, there's so many implications that impact at the individual level, the community level, and the state level. And when the supply of the providers that are available can't accommodate the demand for services, which is what's happening in behavioral health, the results for our communities are distress caused by worsening mental health symptoms, family conflict, child abuse, child neglect, risk of suicide, homelessness, increase in substance use, out-of-home placements, juvenile detentions, emergency room visits because people get so sick because they can't get care, they end up going to the emergency department, hospitalizations, and all of these, of course, then have financial impacts on the individual, community, and the state. So we have a high need for mental health providers that are not only clinically competent, but are also culturally competent. We have populations out there that have so many unmet needs. And the providers need to be ready to deliver services in various modalities, not just individual therapy, which seems to be what people tend to focus on when they think, oh, I'm a counselor, they think of individual therapy. But people need to be prepared, counselors need to be prepared to deliver services in group settings. There can be a much larger impact. You can see more people with fewer clinicians. So Stout's approach to preparing students is spot on. The students that are coming out are trained using evidence-based practices. So practices that really work. There's a base of evidence that supports what's being delivered, such as cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectical behavioral therapy. These are therapy strategies that show effective outcomes, and Stout's curriculum includes these strategies, and people are prepared when they come out to deliver them. But not just the training, there's the applied learning piece of it, and the experience that Stout students get. They practice what is being taught. They actually see clients and deliver counseling services and get coaching and guidance on that in the labs and classrooms that they have available. So not in just individual therapy, but Stout students are trained in group therapy. And I, looked online and looked at the guidance and counseling, the goals in it, and I was like so happy to see that it's right in there. In their 13 different goals that they have, group counseling is listed, because that is what is going to make the difference in us being able to take care of larger populations of people. So, and additionally, Stout seems to understand the importance of making services available that are accessible and avoid stigma. And that is, considering that mental health services are a healthcare service like physical health services. And so co-locating the services amongst other academic programs and other services is critical. Just like we do in our Prevea clinics, we integrate our behavioral health into our primary care settings, which kind of brings that barrier down, and it normalizes it so people don't feel stigmatized when they come in for treatment, and it's really accessible. And so from my understanding, that is a goal of the new facility remodel, is to be able to co-locate behavioral health right within other academic programs and deliver those services right there to break that barrier down and make it very accessible. So the approaches that Stout has in training their students and delivering services are exactly what our community needs.
Thank you, Tony. And Amy, do you just want to I know you hire a lot of Stout graduates, and you have our students in internships and co-ops as well. Can you say a little bit about your experience there and what you notice about Stout students when they come to Hormel?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have the advantage of being on every college campus in my career, so I've seen a lot of college campuses. I like everyone, but I will tell you, Stout prepares their students with the applied learning, the co-op experiences being required. It was even required all the way back in '93, I think, when I was here. And really having those experiences for hands-on and collaborative learning. We have students from all across the country. We go to over 40 universities, but these students come out and they are ready to work. They've had a realistic job preview. You know, you want to learn how to do anything, you go on YouTube and you look it up. These students have had hands-on experiences, whether it be in packaging engineering, food science, food labs. So if you're going to sell a product to a restaurant, you've seen the way the back of the house works and how those things happen at a university like this. So for us, they are ready and willing and able to collaboratively work with teams and get dirty, if you will, where some other students might be nervous about how they're going to apply the things they forgot from, you know, a more traditional method of learning. That's been our experience.
Thank you. And then before I just turn it over to the Regents to see if they have any questions, a more pointed sort of focus on Heritage Hall and infrastructure at an institution like Stout. Why is infrastructure at a Polytechnic so important for addressing workforce needs effectively? And I'll start, just ask Mark and then Jeff for a response to that, and then I will turn things over to the Regents.
Well, back when I started OEM in '86, running a business was pretty simple. You know, we focused on quality, on-time delivery, reasonable price. Not to say that those things aren't still important, they're a given. But what's harder today, when we hear about the challenges in recruitment and retention, understanding team member needs, adapting to the individual is not something we used to do. Yet we have to do that and at the same time serve the whole team. Our payroll system years ago used to have 4 shifts, and members were expected to comply to one of those shifts. Today we have 47. So we have 270 folks, and we have 47 different shifts. And the reason is because we're adapting, and my expectation is that as our team grows, we'll probably have more. OEM is a certified family-friendly workplace, a credential earned by the level of benefits and family supporting policies that we provide our team members. Benefits like comprehensive, health care and child care and dependent care supports, access to team member assistance programs, to mental health services. So what's the connection with Stout and Heritage Hall? Many of these roles that we're talking about are housed in the renovated Heritage Hall. Recruitment and retention of team members will be one of the biggest challenges that we face and other employers face. We'll address this by providing increased services to team members in these areas that I've mentioned. But we need Stout to help us achieve this. The infrastructure investment in Heritage Hall lays the foundation for addressing the needs of employers and students that are needed in these careers. So that's why we're strong supporters of the Heritage Hall project.
I've already quoted some of the comments, the numbers, and looking at just where we as an industry within hospitality and tourism is and how Stout helps support that and feed that. And maybe I'll just share one other number and then comment on the building itself, if you would. If you look at the importance from a tax roll perspective of hospitality and tourism, in the US alone, hospitality alone, through lodging taxes, generates over $44 billion in taxes. In the Wisconsin, and much smarter people in here in Wisconsin, but according to HNLA, is telling me that the contribution that comes in is well over $500 million. So it's very important from an industry standpoint, and the industry not only needs to survive, it needs to thrive. And we need universities like Stout to help drive that forward. Having a philosophy of Polytechnic is one thing, and the applied learning is another. But if you don't have the facilities, it's like sending someone out to do a street fight with a butter knife. It is just very difficult to do that without the proper facilities. When I was here, before Amy, at Heritage Hall, I was in part of the class, the very first class, Burger King sponsored the fast food lab across the street. And I was in that very first class watching that flame broiled burger coming off the equipment that was provided by Burger King. I thought it was really cool, but I'm like, I don't want to smell like a burger the rest of my life. So that helped me make a career decision. But that building was so important. Clint said something earlier, and I promised I was going to say everything nice about Stout. I'm Stout proud, and I love it. But my daughter, who is now in hospitality, was making a decision a few years ago. Where was she going to go to school? And I guided her away from Stout for one reason and one reason only, because of the antiquated facilities of Heritage Hall itself. The people here are phenomenal. The philosophy is here. Applied learning is fantastic. But if you don't have access to the right facilities and make those facilities future-proof and work with partners in the industry to bring the latest in, and the goal is to get more kids into the program, you need the proper facilities to be able to do that. And again, largely because of that hamburger across the street, that helped fuel my career.
Thank you, Jeff. I want to make sure that the Regents have the opportunity to ask any questions that may have come up through this discussion. Yeah, Regent Rye.
Not as much a question, but more education for Regents and others listening. You know, you can pretty much tie everything today in our successes and our challenges in this country and this world to our ability to take care of our minds. And the shortage of mental health care can be tracked back to almost every tragedy that we talk about, every headline, every success story, and the ability to provide mental health resources. And we need to do it in a much larger and better way than we do today. So I've been coming to Stout long before I was a Regent to get to know their mental health program, ideally to hire every single graduate, as Tony knows, one of my goals. And it's very competitive. Especially the uniqueness of Stout, as Tony pointed out, many of our institutions, not all, provide training for mental health providers for our state. So every campus is important to that. But the uniqueness of how Stout has structured it, from their school-based programs to their group therapy programs, is something they should be commended for. Now I challenge you to go visit, like I have before I was a Regent, so before I was on Capitol, to go visit the room where they provide group-based therapy in, and tell me how being in that room is good for your mental health. It isn't, and this is not even sarcasm. It is a very, for lack of better words, depressing room. When I walked in there, and that was the room that the students were using. So the students, as part of their education, were already helping, and they are today helping the mental health of this community and its surrounding communities in facilities that we would never in our professional world ever provide that kind of care in. So as we look at our educational institutions not only providing education to our state, but they also provide services. We saw that in COVID. We see that every day on this campus, on the services they provide for those who don't have access to it, to mental health. They deserve the kind of facilities that every other patient would get in any other kind of institution. And I hope that you take that into consideration when you look at projects like Heritage, because just go visit it one day. And I got to see it before a Regent, so I'm not speaking as Capitol, I'm not speaking as a Regent, I'm speaking as a healthcare provider who has a significant passion for mental health. That room is just not what we would ever consider an industry standard.
Thank you. And yet, we do a lot with what we've got. So we'd like more, but thank you for that comment. Regent Weatherly?
Thank you all for your comments, and thanks a lot for making time to come in here today. Thematically, I think every single one of you mentioned the need for more workers. I would argue for more Wisconsinites in the coming years and generations for our workforce needs, if nothing else for our tax base needs. We have 5 schools two schools on the Minnesota border and three other schools within roughly an hour of Minnesota. I view them as, let's call them Viking re-education camps, or future Wisconsin's schools for future Wisconsinites. And then to the south, it is now cheaper for a student to pay out of state at UW-Whitewater than it is to pay in-state at Northern Illinois. So I think we need to commit more to even recruiting future Wisconsinites from those schools. But that's all prelude to say, how else do you view the UW system as being able to be helpful in attracting and recruiting more future Wisconsinites, additional Wisconsinites? How else can we do our part?
I'd like to respond to that. I think that one of the things that the university as a whole needs to do, and Stout's been reasonably good at this, is making transitions from other educational institutions more seamless. And, you know, President Rothman talked about that in his comments as well. You know, when we look at the trends in education in Wisconsin today, we're seeing explosions in work-based learning. We're Polytechnic. We're seeing explosions in apprenticeship, dual enrollment programs. We're seeing for-profit businesses run by students in high schools. Two of the best in the nation, I think, are right in our neighborhood in Aliva Strum and in drawing a blank now, Webster. You know, I'd like to see Stout and other institutions connect with these organizations that are, and build the pipeline into Stout. Build the pipeline from the technical colleges into the university. I think if we can keep them here and graduate them here, we get a better shot at maintaining them long term.
I agree. I'll just build on that. Hormel Foods offers a program called Inspired Pathways. So anybody who works for our company, we have over 18,000 team members in our company, and they have a child, a dependent, that goes to a 2-year university. It's free. We pay for it. So having some kind of partnership with 2x2 program to get a 4-year degree, because some students just aren't ready yet, first-generation students, to go into that 2-year university, or to go into a 4-year university right away. So it would maybe help retain a little bit more. So anywhere you can do that, I know Winona does that with our technical college in Austin, Minnesota. So I think in the communities that you are, if you're able to offer that, I think that, and some of you maybe already do, but it's just a great program, and we've seen, I think we have over 100 graduates already, and we just launched that during COVID as a way to differentiate ourselves.
Clint?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I have to watch what I say because I know the legislative representatives, Crystal and Deidre, are behind me sitting over there. But this comes up a lot in hearings. And I serve on the college university hearing committee as well. And one of the big questions is, how do we stop students from going out of state, or why are they even looking out of state? And one of the things that comes up regionally in this area quite a bit with my colleagues that are maybe in the southeast or the east is, why do we need all these universities concentrated close together? Is there duplication? Well, I would say marketing and branding. All three of these institutions over here along the 94 corridor, and including La Crosse, have all branded themselves, I think, in the recent years, like last decade, as unique. You know, Stout has its unique niche. UW-Eau Claire has its unique niche. My daughter chose UW-RF because of the career path she's interested in, because they have their own unique niche. When I first got in the legislature, you know, there's talk of consolidation and how can we be more efficient and this and that. You know, making sure that students, and not only students, but taxpayers and even legislators like me, see that there is a unique difference between each of these universities. And they each serve a unique role in supplying the state's workforce. And then other than that, I'd be marketing like crazy over to the Twin Cities. You know, I think there was actually more Minnesota students when I went to college here than there is now. I was surprised when I asked Chancellor Frank for the numbers. Because I think when I was here, it was almost 50-50 Minnesota students, and then a mix of Illinois in here as well. It's much less than it used to be here, so.
Ours is about 27%. And I know we're up on time, and I want to respect the Regents' time. Just by way of conclusion, this is what we do at Stout. So it's been mentioned today that we have about 100 program advisory committees across campus. And we bring in people like our colleagues here today who are not afraid to tell us what we do well and also what we need to improve upon, and you heard both of that today, right? The call out of the strengths of the institution, but also those areas where we and others can strengthen our work even more, and areas that we are working on, like those articulation agreements, different types of pathway opportunities for students, the on-ramps and off-ramps into education. That help to diversify our student ranks and think about when and where and how our students need to be educated. So we're not afraid of having these conversations. This is what makes us a better institution. It's what we thrive on. It's what's helped us succeed for 130 years. And so I just want to thank our partners so much for joining us here today, taking time out of their valuable schedules, and for the good conversation around the table. Thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you to Chancellor Frank and the panelists. We appreciate it. I think we would be doing well with a 5-minute break at this point. So we'll see you back here in 5 to 8 minutes. All right, let's get started with the rest of our agenda. We have a wonderful reception waiting for us later tonight. But right now, we're going to have a presentation on the value that intercollegiate athletics brings to higher education and the surrounding communities. More specifically, we'll hear about the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, or WIAC. This conference is widely considered the premier Division III conference in the country by the number of NCAA championships captured annually by WIAC teams, case in point. Just this past month, the men's and women's indoor track and field teams from UW-La Crosse each claimed national titles at the championship meet held in Birmingham, Alabama. This is the first time in D3 history that one university swept both titles. Congratulations, Chancellor Gao and UWL's student athletes. And this past weekend, the UW-Oshkosh gymnastics team won for the second consecutive year the national championship at the National Collegiate Gymnastics Association meet in Winona, Minnesota. Two other WIAC schools, La Crosse and Stout, finished second and third. Congratulations to Chancellors Levitt, Gao, and Frank and their gymnastics teams. For today's discussion, I will turn things over to WIAC Commissioner Danielle Harris.
Good afternoon. All right, so the goal of today, we will talk obviously about the value of intercollegiate athletics, and then we will end this discussion with a panel that will be moderated by UW-Stout's Athletic Director, Dewey Nance. So just to give you a little bit of information about who we are Division III, and just so you guys know, Division III is non-scholarship. So our student athletes do not accept scholarships or do not have scholarships. They purely participate for the joy and the love of the game. Collectively, throughout our 8 institutions, we have over 5,000 student athletes. And we have captured 123 national championships and counting, which is the largest in NCAA Division III history. So what we're going to talk about today is why should you invest in athletics at our WIAC institutions? Invest for enrollment purposes, infrastructure purposes, because we mold and shape future leaders and we prepare those student athletes for the workforce. Consistently throughout our tenure, our student athletes have had higher graduation rates than the general student body. Consistently, and even during COVID, our student athletes had a GPA collectively higher than the student body on all 8 of our campuses. Our goal continues to be is how can athletics have a positive impact on enrollment on our campuses? A survey that the NCAA did for Division III student athletes a couple years ago, 80% of those student athletes said that they chose their institution due to athletics. You can honestly say that athletics is a sure bet for enrollment purposes. We have higher GPAs, we consistently graduate at a higher rate, and we have higher retention rates than the general student body. We make connections through our teams, our coaches, and our student athletes instantly have mentors for their future success. So throughout today, we have talked about kind of the strengths, the weaknesses, but I like to think of athletics as the opportunity. Here we have the opportunity to view athletics as an investment that enriches all of our campuses' experiences and contributes to the economic viability of both our campuses and their local communities, and look at it more as just an expenditures. When we have teams compete on our campuses, we have teams that come from out of towns, fans, parents. Those fans and those parents spend money in our communities. They spend the night in our communities, as was, we talked about hotels earlier this afternoon. They spend their resources and their dollars in our campus communities. However, investments and additional resources are needed in our campus athletic facilities to continue to build and strengthen our overall sports module. The quality of our infrastructure is not equitable among our 8 institutions in terms of size and scope. In order to continue to retain and attract student athletes, as well as our general population, we need to continue to invest in athletics as a whole. Obviously, in December, the system approved the 23 through 28 system strategic plan, and its goals to graduate 40,000 students annually. Our WIAC student athletes contribute substantially to that number. We consistently, again, graduate our student athletes at a higher rate than the average student population. And some of the pillars of that strategic plan is to be purpose-driven. We're student-centered. We recruit well. We have mental health screenings for all of our student athletes, and we engage continuously with our alumni. We're people-focused. Collaboration and teamwork is the essence of what we do every day with our student athletes. And our commitment to stewardship and sustainability. But in order to sustain our excellence within Division III and continue to build on those 123 national championships, we need investment and additional resources. As an example, just to use obviously because we're here at UW-Stout today, they announced last year that they were adding women's lacrosse. And I believe they may have a game tomorrow, or it may have been postponed due to weather, but we can ask Dewey about that when he comes up. In order to vet whether women's lacrosse was going to be a viable sport for UW-Stout, They had an advisory athletic board that met. They looked at an in-depth evaluation process to look at how it would align with different opportunities as far as within the conference, the NCAA, and what impact it would have on Title IX. And just so you know, this was new tuition dollars added to UW-Stout with the addition of women's lacrosse. Just to give you an overall overview of where UW-Stout was with their athletic department as far as participation is concerned, in the season of 18-19, they had 416 student athletes. They currently now have 602. So within that time frame, they have added over $2 million to $2 million of athletic and tuition dollars to their enrollment budget. So they've added, with adding those 200 student athletes, they've added money to the university. Here's a snapshot of not a specific campus, but these are all of the sports that we sponsor across our campus. And this is just to give you a small snapshot of what athletics in terms of tuition dollars does on our campuses. This does not include room and board. This does not include the economic impact that these teams generate for our campus communities when they bring outside teams in for various tournaments and championships. The essence of Division III has 3 different pillars. First of all, we discover student athletes. We recruit heavily. Our coaches are some of our best recruiters on our campuses as far as how to attract our student athletes. We develop them. We mold them. We shape future leaders. And the UW system and the WIAC have continuously made a commitment to the student athlete experience. Some of the valuable skill sets that employers look for, our student athletes have, which is teamwork, time management, leadership, commitment to volunteerism, communication, and accountability. Those are all things that our student athletes gain throughout their 4 or 5 year career while they're at their campuses. In terms of workforce development, a lot of times we hear consistently employers like to hire student athletes. Why do they like to hire student athletes? Because these student athletes are confident. They're natural born leaders. They have emotional regulation, whether we like to believe it or not, but maybe not so much their coaches. But, but they have emotional regulation. They understand how to bounce back from a bad loss, right? They know how to celebrate and how to go through the handshake line properly at the end of the game. And again, they're very disciplined and they have a regiment schedule. They have great time management skills because, again, a lot of our student athletes are having practices, lifting weights, making sure that their diet and their exercise are on point, as well as some of our student athletes actually have on-campus jobs while they're participating in intercollegiate athletics. So again, our student athletes are the model citizens of what employers look for in terms of workforce development. And so to illustrate that, we're going to have Dewey Nance, the UW-Stout athletic director, come up and moderate a panel of former and current student athletes.
Good afternoon. I want to thank Danielle and the Board of Regents for the opportunity to speak with you today on behalf of the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference and the University of Wisconsin-Stout. I'm currently in my 33rd year at this institution. I spent my first 20 years as a coach and educator, and now currently my 13th year as a director of athletics. Very honored to be in this role. The opportunity to work in a college setting like we have here at UW-Stout, striving to enhance the student-athlete experience, has been a remarkable opportunity for me. The connections I have to over 30 years of student athletes and the ability to share in their experiences is priceless. Let's get on and let's talk to our panel for a little bit. So, can you click that, Danielle? We'll start with Erin. Erin, can you give us a little intro of you?
Good afternoon. My name is Erin Kinsella, Athletic Development Officer here at UW-Stout. I like to tell people I'm very Stout proud. I came here in 2001 and I'm still here. So I got my degree in 2005. I was a women's basketball player. I was part of 2 championship teams. My senior year, we went to the Sweet 16. So I had a fantastic experience here at Stout with athletics and during my undergrad. I graduated in 2005 and then was really fortunate to get hired here as an assistant women's basketball coach. So I did that for 7 years and then had the honor to go up to our admissions office. So I did a lot of recruitment for the university for 8 years, and then now I'm in my 7th month here in the foundation office.
Hello, my name is Matthew Ryan, and I'm a 5th year senior here at UW-Stout, and I'm studying computer and electrical engineering. A little bit about me is I've had 2 internships now during my time at Stout, one at Midwest Manufacturing and one last summer at United Launch Alliance in Denver, Colorado.
Hello everyone, my name is Amanda Eason. I'm a junior here at Stout. I'm studying business administration and I've done minoring in economics and finance. I play on the women's basketball team and I also really love it here. I have an internship lined up for this summer at Target back home in Minnesota. And
Luke?
Good afternoon, Luke Rickel, Vice President and Partner for Hawk Builders. We're a general contractor construction management company out of Eau Claire. Went to school here, played football from 2000 to 2005. My wife is a UW Eau Claire grad with a master's in nursing. So just happy to be here, be a part of that now.
Thank you. Let's start with Erin and Luke. Maybe start with Erin. Thinking back, and I don't want to say how many years ago, but when you first came to Stout, what attracted you to this institution?
That's a really good question. So I knew I wanted to play college sports, and I knew that the WIAC was the best conference in the nation in Division III. So what brought me to Stout was I knew I was going to get a job after graduation. I was a hands-on learner, so I knew that when I came to Stout, I was going to get hands-on experiences right away my freshman year here at Stout. And then I built that relationship with the head coach that was recruiting me. And so when I got on campus, it really felt like home to me. I got to meet with program directors. I got to see the facilities. I got to walk into one of our over 600 labs that we have on campus. So it was really important to me to get that hands-on experience and get the job after graduation.
Luke, I know you, construction was a big part of it, so same question to you.
Very similar to Erin. I knew I wanted to play football. I got recruited heavily by UW-Stout. When I got here, the stadium was just being built. It was, first impression that I seen, and it was just very welcoming. I wanted to be a part of it. I didn't know at the time that I wanted to be in the construction industry. I didn't know what degree, but I did know that they had a good program. I knew that they probably had the best program there was, and I also knew that the job placement was above and beyond, better than anybody else. I've known other people that have gone to school here, and very much like myself, they would get a job 6 months prior to graduating. That was a big deal for me to know that my future was sound prior to even graduating and having to really look for a position.
Amanda, and students, are your mics on? If not, pull them closer so everybody can hear you. Amanda, since you're our youngest panel member, can you talk about kind of the same question? Why Stout? What drew you here as one of our people? So.
yeah, so like I said, I'm from a small town in Minnesota, so I never really heard about Stout. I started to be recruited by the women's basketball team by the coaches here. And after kind of coming here and getting to go and visit, talk to the team, I really liked the opportunities that I would get here, specifically as a student athlete, just getting experience with, being part of the team and just having those experiences. But also school-wise, I really liked what Stout had to offer me, with just the way that they kind of help with their students.
Can I shoot a shout out to the tech crew? Can you make sure the students' mics are working? I don't think that they are. And Matt, I know we talked about a lot with enrollment and retention being a very big part of what we do on all of our college campuses, but Matt, what keeps you here? What kept you here?
Yeah, so what kept me here for 5 years is the team and the culture that was built around our team at UW-Stout here. Not only that, but just the education I was getting. A lot of my classes were hands-on, which I really preferred, which is why I came to Stout. But the retention, just showing up every day and seeing my teammates give the best effort they could every day, it's just very attractive to come back to every day, day in and day out, and made me want to get up and continue with athletics and go to school every day to get good grades to secure my future after graduation.
Thank you. Amanda, Danielle talked about the University of Wisconsin-Stout and us looking at our sports module and adding women's lacrosse. As a female student athlete, what does that mean anything to you with that opportunity for women's lacrosse in our first season?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's awesome for those women that are on that team, especially this year with kind of celebrating the 50 years of Title IX. I think that's awesome to see how far they've come and to have those opportunities with that. And then also just with student athletes as a whole, I think it's awesome to have another team addition so that, you know, we can support them, they can support us, just one big community, all of us student athletes together.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Aaron, you work in a new role, a new position with the foundation to help fundraise and work with me and our campus on donor development. How important to you in your role as a former coach, as a admissions director, or as working in admissions, but now in your role in infrastructure and telling the story?
It's super important. I mean, private support through our alumni is huge at a college campus, especially when we can't give scholarships to athletes here. Infrastructure, recruiting. When I was in admissions, high school students want to see nice, where they're going to be in their future and see nice facilities, right? So in their facilities, some of them are nicer in their high school than what they come at their college campus, potential college campus to see. It's important for them. So infrastructure is so important for recruitment on any college campus. So connecting with alumni and getting that private support to help with our sports and fitness center or our Heritage Hall, for example, when we have 2,000 students that use that building, and a lot of them are student athletes. They're business majors, they're early childhood majors, they're golf students, they're real estate property management students. And so when we can get that support from our alumni, it's awesome.
Luke, I want to ask you, working in the field that you do and your willingness to get involved with our campus and our athletic department as a donor, can you touch on the importance of what facilities for you as an alumnus and somebody that's able to give back and why?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to what everybody's been talking about is we're competing, right? We're competing for students, we're competing to gain Wisconsinites. I try to tie it to what I do for a living, and I meet with a lot of private businesses, and they're in the same boat. They're competing with other businesses. They're building buildings to compete for more employees to come. That's the way the UW system needs to look at it. How do we build these facilities so we can start competing with the surrounding areas, getting other talent to come here, to stay here? For me as a donor, on the donor side of things, I want to know that if I'm putting the money to, that it's going to good use, that it's being used to build facilities that are going to compete with the surrounding schools and universities, but also that is going to be here 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, and that you're using that money wisely.
Thank you. I'm going to move to workforce a little bit. I'm proud to say that my son is a Stout grad from a few years back. Very typical of a Stout grad. Had a job in October, graduated in May, and he worked on his capstone project his entire senior year. And not worrying about having a job when he's in October during his football season is pretty cool. But Luke, can you connect this a little bit to your history is what is it about Stout grads? I know it's your construction field's important, but what is it about Stout grads that you look for?
Yeah, just a little bit of background. We have roughly 40 people that work for us. We're a construction management company. Over half are UW-Stout grads. We typically only look at UW-Stout, and we come early. We come to the fall career fair because we want to get them early because we know they're going to be gone. We've had a really good success in the last 5 years with the internship program of bringing them in, seeing how things work, giving them job opportunities so that they are coming to work for us as soon as school is done. From what I noticed, and obviously being biased, is we know they're getting the skill. We know what kind of knowledge we're getting. We also know what type of students come from UW-Stout, the characters that they have. Obviously, I want to hire the kids. I call them kids. I want to hire them because of the skill and the knowledge, but I also want to hire them for the character, who they are, what experiences they have, how they talk to people. And in my experience, Stout is above and beyond any other university that I've seen.
Matt, I want to ask this question to you. You're moving into the workforce and you're a typical Stout senior. You already have a job. But can you talk about your internship that you had and how you're going to end up working for, I think, the same company, correct? But how well prepared were you for your internship, and how well prepared do you feel going back out into that position in a career?
I felt very prepared going into this internship, mainly because I had an internship the prior summer, but even for that internship, I was prepared because of just all the great hands-on learning we've done here at Stout. I felt very comfortable moving into those positions and being confident with my abilities to do the work that needed to be done and to communicate effectively with a team.
Tell them what you did.
Yeah, so I was working as a software developer on the simulation side of rocket launches. Yeah, so.
And what are you going to do with your career?
Yeah, so I'm going to do basically that. I'm going to move to Denver, Colorado, and work as a software developer on simulations for rocket launches.
That's pretty cool stuff. Luke, and I think just looking from your standpoint, what is it about student athletes? I know you hire what you do and what you look for with Stout grads, but what is it about athletes and what they bring to the table when you look to hire somebody?
Yeah, I think you guys mentioned most of it in the slides, that they come in with teamwork. They know how to work with others. What I think one of the biggest attributes that athletes come with that others don't, they know how to go through adversity. They know how to work through conflict resolution. They need to, that's one of the biggest things as an athlete. You know how to work hard, you know how to work through situations, and you know when things go bad, you know how to get through them and look for a brighter day.
Thank you. I'm going to finish up here quick. Matt and Amanda, this question is for both of you. You're both scholars, fantastic scholar athletes. You're active in many things besides just athletics and going to class. How do you balance and stay successful with that? Let's start with Amanda.
I think balancing it is a huge help to the people that are around us. Like my coaches specifically, they help so much with making sure that we are getting stuff done and making sure that everything is done, you know, when it needs to be done. Also just the professors, the staff at the field house working with us student athletes. We have so much support around us, and that really helps with being able to manage everything that's on our plate. And that really makes it a lot easier on us to make sure everything gets done.
Yeah, like Amanda said, we get a lot of support, student athletes, from the coaches and just our teammates. We have designated like study hall sections that help us be successful in the classroom, as well as managing our time, and just communicating with professors if we have a conflict with like a meet or a competition. It just goes a long way.
Good, and then we'll finish up and then have time for questions if the Regents have any. So, Aaron, a question, just a WIAC question. What is it about the WIAC conference?
The student athletes in the competition. I mean, there's never a game that's an easy game. The talent and the level that's played in this conference, you can't beat it. We're bringing in really good student athletes from all around the country.
Matt or Amanda, you want to answer that? What is it about the WIAC that really brings it home for you two?
For me, it's just the competition. We talk to each other while we're at competitions across schools, and that grows a bond too that makes you want to keep showing up to compete. And everyone's very talented and hardworking, so it's really fun to go and watch these competitions from all over the state.
Yeah, just like they said, the competition is so awesome. Specific to my team, we were able to win a part of the regular season conference championship this year, and just stuff with that, like when you're competing against the teams that we're competing against, it is so much more special when you get those type of championships, and it just makes it so special to compete in a conference like this.
And Luke?
Yeah, I think it's just the talent level. I think when you hear Division III, you're thinking maybe the talent level isn't there, but I would argue that the WIAC alone has more talent level than a lot of the Division II universities in the nation.
Just to go on to that too, I mean, with only one Division II university in this state, there's so many high caliber student athletes that come to play Division III. So it's pretty amazing.
I think as Regents, you can see why I love what I do, right? I'll open it up for questions if anybody has questions for our panel. And if not, thank you all for your time today. On behalf of the conference and our institution, enjoy the rest of your time here.
Thank you.
And again, thanks to the Stout Athletic Director and your panel. Very interesting discussion. Now we turn to the UW System's recommendation on the 2023-24 tuition and fee proposals, which was presented to the Business and Finance Committee earlier today. I'm going to call on Chair of that committee, Regent Scott Bechtel, to present the committee's recommendation to the board.
Thank you, Regent President Walsh, and thank you for the athletes in that presentation. I rode crew out east where I went to school, 8 men in a boat, rowing backwards. So you trust your coxswain because she's got to tell you where to go. And it's the ultimate team sport, so it was certainly formative for me. And like 8 men in a boat rowing, we're not without a direction. We had a committee meeting today, men and women. This morning, the Business and Finance Committee reviewed and discussed the UW Systems proposal for tuition and auxiliary rates for the 2023-24 academic year. As this was being presented to us, President Rothman and Vice President Sean Nelson also provided an overview of the very deliberate, the very thoughtful process by which the universities balanced their resource needs with student accessibility and affordability in developing their requests. And certainly President Rothman emphasized the need for affordability around our campuses and the need to continue to pursue academic excellence, which is a hallmark of the university system. The result is the proposal that has been presented to you. Each of you have had the opportunity to review this over the past several days, and as you've seen in your materials, each university has provided detail on the planned use of this revenue. It's very detailed, it's very well done. I think our committee was, to a person, very complimentary. 105 pages, lots of charts, lots of detail. I feel very much informed as a regent, and I also appreciate that in this process, Regent Jones and I had the opportunity to meet on several occasions and kind of help shape and develop this. And so we as regents, I think, can be very proud to take ownership of this and kind of put our chin out and say, this is our proposal. We all support this. The proposal does provide for adjustments in tuition and segregated fees that vary by university, but they average about 4.9% for resident undergraduates, so a relatively modest increase when you look at where we've been, which I'll make a comment about that in a second. If you account for an average 3.5% increase in the room and board, the proposed average increase to the total cost of attendance, I think that's important, the total cost of attendance for Wisconsin resident undergraduate students at the four-year campuses would be 4.2%. So we're below 5, we're below 6, we're well below our rates of inflation, both in the recent history and this year. And at every university, the increased tuition and fees for resident undergraduates on a dollar basis is less than the increase for out-of-state undergraduates. So we looked across the campuses, the chancellors and their teams did excellent work, and we're making sure that while there is an increase on the resident undergraduates, it's proportional and less so than that for the out-of-state undergraduates. I think that's an important point. That's also true at the 10 universities proposing an increase in the graduate tuition rates. In addition, several universities propose to increase program-specific differentials in certain fields of study. And we leaned in on this and took a good close look at this. These programs do have a few things in common. One, they're high cost to deliver. Two, they're in high demand by prospective students, yet often lack the resources to expand capacity to enroll more students. Had discussions today with several chancellors. If we can put this forward, they will be able to serve more students. They will be able to hire more faculty. So we will be able to get to the aspirational number of growing the number of undergraduates to feed that talent pipeline in Wisconsin. Three, the graduates are in high demand from employers in areas like nursing, computer science, engineering, construction. We even heard in the gaming area for this particular campus we're on today, on site today. And they generally pay higher salaries as well. These differential tuition dollars will stay in these programs. They will allow these students to maintain and improve the quality of their education, and while educating and graduating more students into well-paying careers that help meet the state's workforce demands, students who learn and get a job and hopefully stay in the state, and we know from the numbers most of them do. The committee members asked really good questions today. We had a very productive discussion, and we voted in favor of what we found to be a very reasonable proposal. And let me emphasize, that vote was unanimous. It's important to all of us that a UW education continues to be affordable. But as resident tuition rates have been held flat for the past nearly 10 years, inflation has increased over that same time, a cumulative 26%. How many in our businesses have not raised our prices in 10 years? That's a donut. Nobody. We've all had to do that. So it's time that we use this operational lever here at the university. In response to the resulting loss of purchasing power, cost-cutting measures have been enacted, and we went through several of those, multiples of those today. Many uncommitted reserves have been utilized. It's important to note that even under this proposal, that GPR tuition line and auxiliary fund balances are still projected to decrease. In his remarks to the committee, President Rothman highlighted several areas in which the system will continue to address operational expenses and drive efficiencies. But as President Rothman told us, some of these campuses are spending now through their surpluses to pay for current needs, and that can't continue. It's also essential for us as Regents to be responsible stewards of the value of a UW education. That means we must be mindful of both the affordability and the quality we offer to students. President Rothman noted, and the committee agrees unanimously, that this proposal strikes that right balance, with the University of Wisconsin remaining the very best value of any public university system in the Midwest, maybe the country, for its resident students. Along with the state investment that this board is recommending in our biennial budget request, and we can't always control that, we can control this. These resources are critical in enabling our universities to provide our students with a high-quality education and a fulfilling college experience that, as we've heard in all of our meetings, lifelong benefits and to the entire state of Wisconsin. I do want to emphasize that our committee very carefully reviewed this proposal. The package, as I noted, was modified as we went along over the past few months as we've tackled this project along with system staff and the chancellors. We're also mindful not to debate the past. Whether the undergraduate resident tuition fees freeze was a right decision, that's not what we're here talking about today, nor should we be critical of that. An argument can be made that given at that time the pace of tuition increases, low inflation rates, and rather large campus balances, that decision to freeze undergraduate tuition may have been the right decision. I'm not here to criticize that, and as a fiscal conservative, I appreciate this situation in which we find ourselves today. But today, and in the future, and under our watch and for which we are accountable, we have a very different set of conditions. And as the material speaks to, in our analysis, as the Business and Finance Committee concludes, it's time to use the lever of a tuition and fees increase. Use it carefully, use it in a targeted way, do it in partnership with the campuses. I believe all those metrics have been achieved. And we do so with advance notice so that the students and families who are impacted have time to react and make the choices that are best for them. On behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I now move adoption of Resolution 9, and along with Vice President Nelson, would be happy to entertain any questions or comments the Regents may have about the proposal.
Thank you, Regent Bechtel. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
I think Regent Underly may have had a comment.
Regent Underly, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Regent President. I support the tuition proposal. So I'm, ex officio, I'm on this as a member of the board because of my position as state superintendent, which is nonpartisan. And I just wanted to share that, much like Regent Bechtel had said, we certainly need to balance the need to increase revenue with our commitment to the present, the past, and the future students of these institutions, including the resources available on campus to help students quickly and efficiently complete their programs. I look forward to additional discussion on how UW system plans to address student debt and the financial barriers for prospective students, specifically those from historically underrepresented identities. Indeed, I'd argue that these are interrelated. Increased revenue is necessary for competitive salaries and necessary capital improvements for our world-class university system, which in turn enhance the student experience and in turn the future of our workforce. It's clear that the tuition freeze, coupled with inflation, have left many of our UW campuses in a tough position. In order to remain competitive when hiring staff and to provide students with the highest quality of education, we must act to ensure that this happens despite years of decreasing state support.
Thank you, Regent Underly. Regent Menny-Dietz, you had your hand up.
So, approximately a year ago, when we were speaking to President Laughlin, when he was
Microphone.
When he was good enough to come over and meet with us before he actually officially took the job, we discussed raising tuition. And it was the group's wish that it be done, but it be done in a way that was thought out, that it was based upon facts, that it was based upon need, that it was based upon a caring for the students and the families that were going to have to pay this tuition. And I think you've heard, and by the way, I'm going to talk about this later, but you just heard an excellent lawyer present his case, and I appreciate that, Regent Bechtel, supporting this raise. How could you not, after listening to that, support this? So, President, you've done everything that we asked you to do, and it's laid out in the pages, and I appreciate what you did with the staff, that worked on this so hard. Mr. Bechtel, Regent Bechtel, Regent Jones, anyone else that really spent a lot of time and effort on this. That's what we needed to do, and we've done it, and I support it. I do want to say one final thing as it relates to Regent Bechtel. We're going to really miss this contribution that he makes to us. He always comes whenever we ask him, and whenever I did ask him to step up and perform a task for us as a group. He stepped right up and hit the ball out of the park every time. And I am going to miss him. I'm going to miss what he brings to the table, and I want to thank you for that, Scott. So,
thank you,
I'm
Wilson.
in favor of this.
Regent Rye, I think you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, when we talk about the definition of why we're here in our fiduciary duties, this is probably one of the most important things that we can do, is to look at the sustainability and the improvement of the organization at the end of the day. So I wholeheartely appreciate all of the work that went into this. I sincerely appreciate Regent Bechtel doing it this year and not turfing it to next year for purely selfish reasons. and all the work that Scott's put in. But, you know, as a board and as somebody who takes this fiduciary duty, you know, very seriously, I support this and feel like this is our duty to do so. To a point that my fellow regent next to me made as well is the financial aid aspect. We did discuss that in committee today, so the other members do know, and the campuses are prepared, you know, to look at the packages being offered. And one thing I really do appreciate about is the timing of us having this conversation. It does give our campuses time to prepare for all of that. So that was discussed in committee and is being addressed.
Thank you. Regent Posh.
Thank you. I actually get no pleasure in being a dissenting voice, but we have an equation here with $3.6 billion budget on one side that's looking at tuition for some increase in revenue, and probably needed. I think the arguments made on the request are very good. But on the other side, we have the student. With the student, this is real dollars. This is from $200 to $300 without the details, of which they're going to have to find the dollars in which to pay in addition to their tuition. And they only have a few ways to do that. Either they have an account, a savings, that they can pull it out of, or they have to, if they have a job, they have to work some additional hours, or they have to go in debt. And we know that debt is a certain problem that students are dealing with today. And so consequently, we also know that the higher education has received some criticism for the value of a four-year degree. And we also know we do not have the numbers entering our institutions that we would like to have. And we've spent the day listening to that, and we certainly have a lot of work to do in communicating how great the education received here. So I do believe that we do need some increase in tuition, and we need to do it on an annual basis. And even though I felt it was unfair that the system didn't get incremental increases over the years, we can't go back and do that. But I also think that 4.9 or less than 5% is beyond and should be something less than that.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Yes, Regent Walks.
I support this increase. I think one of the lessons we're learning today, and we've learned in all of the meetings that I've been at, is that the critical component that our system is to the DNA of our economy. We are in competition with University of Michigan. We're in competition with a host of similar institutions for talented professors. And without getting into the past, I certainly don't want to go down that road at all, because we are where we are, and now is the time to start taking steps to preserve this institution, advance it into the future. I am completely for this resolution.
Thank you, Regent Walks. Regent Atwell.
Thank you. I'm wholeheartedly in support of this. In addition to the other things, I'd like to thank Vice President Nelson for his work on assembling the case, and President Rothman for making the case effectively. We are going to get some blowback on it. We kind of already do see stuff in our inbox. You know, I think the impact on students is important consideration. We had the opportunity, as Ed pointed out, to increase tuition last year, and we stayed with 0. So really, we are kind of, if you average those two numbers, we're easing into this. I definitely see this as part of an overall plan that involves other revenue sources that are part of the budget. And I think there is a connection. It's not the sole source of revenue, but I think it is closely related to the situation with our faculty and staff who started at a relatively low base relative to peers and have definitely seen purchase power erode. We've seen cumulative inflation in the last 3 years of 21%. And so additional revenue sources from this, from the pay plan dollars that we're requesting be funded, and examples like the Minnesota tuition differential coming back into the system. These are all sources to try to address and to address concretely the faculty and staff pay situation, and it's a very rational, just and for more robust access initiatives, which I think everybody on the board is attentive to. And I also think we want to go back to, this is a very, Rodney, a good point on we're trying to grow enrollment. But as we look at this being a rational investment for the students and for the families in the state at a tremendous value, if they select institutions that fit their aspirations, you can't find a better value. So thank you.
Okay. Regent Weatherly.
When President Rothman first emailed the proposal of a near 5% increase, I was surprised. Not at the increase, but at the level. I anticipated 3 to 4%, much like Regent Pash. However, I've come to support the 5% level. In the last several weeks, I have talked to dozens of students and student groups from UW-Oshkosh, UW-Parkside, UWM, and have reached out to student groups at UW-Madison and UW-Whitewater. From those meetings, I had a pair of takeaways. First, broadly speaking, they wish this wasn't happening. Of course they would, as do I. But they understand the need. In fact, they became much more understanding and in many cases supportive of it once I shared that most of the dollars will largely fund pay plan increases from the faculty and staff. It was a reminder to me that with our students, most of their interaction is with our faculty and staff, and when you tell them that is who you're supporting, that is when their eyes lit up. Second, and more relevant to my tension between 3 and 4%, the 3 or 4% I anticipated versus the 5% proposal, when I asked the student groups, regardless of how they felt of the increase, whether they viewed a difference between the two, between 3 to 4% and 5%, and everyone perceived no material difference. They, in short, said, if you're gonna raise it 3.5% versus 5%, 5%'s fine. It is all the same to us. Now, this is a sample size. I'm not saying I speak for all students, but I speak for many dozens, if not 100. So, to be clear, I take no joy in increasing the cost of higher ed, but when weighed against all the other factors, I support President Rothman's proposal. Finally, I want to thank the leadership at the system, UWM, UW-Oshkosh, and UW-Parkside for setting up the meetings and the students who very much inform my support of the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Weatherly. I'd like to relate just a quick story. During the first year I was a regent, we had something called the All in Wisconsin tour. And so we would go around and meet with business people, and often students and faculty would be invited for a little Q&A after breakfast. And Regent President Peterson at one of those on the Eau Claire campus stood up and said, I'd like to hear from the students. What kind of complaints do you have? What are your concerns? And a young woman's hand shot up and she said, I don't like that I can't get a seat in the required courses I have. There aren't enough seats. I can't register. I have to put my program off. I don't understand why I can't, if I'm a major in this, why I can't get a course. And I let her get it out, and then I replied to her, what you're seeing and what you're experiencing is the other side of the bright, shiny coin called tuition freeze. And I think up until that moment, the students that were present didn't see a connection between those two things. Not only that, the inability to hire enough faculty in high demand STEM areas, but also I need to go talk to a counselor because I'm stressed out. Well, there aren't as many as there used to be. There aren't, back 3 years ago. So I think seeing the understanding in that student's eye was really transformational for me because I helped her make a small connection between what I experience as a regent and what I hear from our campuses and the student side of it. And they have had 11 years of wonderful education. We are a bargain by any sense of the word. As fiduciaries for the University of Wisconsin system, we do have to take that into consideration. I'm very concerned about the quality. We say things about student success, and we mean what we say, but the campuses have to have the resources to deliver on that. So I'm strongly in favor of President Rothman's recommendation. Other questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Regent Peterson, did you have your hand up? No? Oh, okay. All right.
Everybody said what I think.
Okay, very, very good. With seeing no other comments or questions, Madam Secretary, I'd like to request a roll call vote, please.
Regent President Walsh?
Yes.
Regent Vice President Bogus?
Yes.
Regent Adams?
Yes.
Regent Atwell?
Yes.
Regent Bechtel?
Yes.
Regent Cologne? Regent Jones?
Yes.
Regent Menedez?
Yes.
Regent Miller?
Yes.
Regent Posh?
No.
Regent Peterson?
Yes.
Regent Prince?
Yes.
Regent Rye?
Yes.
Regent Staton?
She has a conflict
She
of
is
interest.
Regent Tucker? Regent Underly?
Yes.
Regent Walks?
Yes.
And Regent Weatherly?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, Regents. And this concludes our open session. Vice President Bogus, will you please read the motion to move into closed session?
I move that the Board of Regents move into closed session to consider personal histories related to UW Green Bay honorary degree nomination as permitted by statute section 1985, parent 1, parent F of Wisconsin statutes. Consider personal histories related to a UW Eau Claire honorary degree nomination as permitted by section 1985, parent 1, parent F of Wisconsin statutes. Conduct public business with competitive bargaining implications permitted by section 1985.
It wasn't my idea, but I
parent E of the Wisconsin statutes. Discuss search process and strategies for UW-Madison positions permitted by section 1985, parent 1, parent C, and E, Wisconsin statutes.
Very good. Is there a second? Thank you. Please call the roll, Madam Secretary.
No, thank you. Appreciate it. This is always my favorite part.
Okay, for the record,
Oh.
sorry, there's more. UW Eau
There's
Claire
more.
student appeals permitted by section 1985, 1A, F, and G of Wisconsin statutes, and consider UW-Madison student appeals permitted by section 1985, parent 1, parent A, parent F, and parent G of the Wisconsin statute. I'm going to be
Thank you. And we did have a second from Regent Rye. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Regent President Walsh?
Yes.
Regent Vice President Bogus?
just hanging on to every word. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Regent Adams?
Yes.
Regent Atwell?
Yes.
Regent Bechtel?
Yes.
Regent Cologne? Regent Jones?
Yes.
Regent Menedez? Regent Miller?
Yes.
Regent Posh?
Yes.
Regent Peterson?
Yes.
Regent Prince? Regent Rye?
Yep.
Regent Staton? Regent Tucker? Regent Underly?
Yes.
Regent Walks?
Yes.
Regent Weatherly?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just wait a few moments till the room clears and our lines clear.